Hey everybody, welcome back to VERY Sega. So today we're going to continue the series, Naomi Happy Fun Time, because I couldn't think of a better title. And today we're playing a fighting game, which is an absolutely big mouthful of a title, Akatsuki Blitzkampf, and that's all I'm going to try to pronounce. From now on, I'm just going to call this the game. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But the Sega NAOMI is not starved for 2D fighting games. There's an absolute metric crap ton of them on the platform, but there's definitely some deeper cuts, and this is one of them. Because what other game than this is going to let you play is a gigantic battle tank? Well, I guess that's not quite true. Waku Waku 7 has a tank in it, but this one is completely different. The point I'm trying to make is this game is absurd by nature, but is actually a ton of fun and a solid B-tier effort that reminds me of some of my favorite fighting games of all time. Now you will see with the Blitz tank here, it's not a very effective way to actually play the game. The movement is stilted, it is strange, but some of the specials and supers here are just hilarious. You have this ion cannon that comes out of the tank and absolutely decimates your opponent. It doesn't make any sense in the context of the game, but it is fun, and that's what we expect out of a game like this. It has charm, it has flair, it's unique, and it's probably one of those games that maybe you've never heard of before. But leave me a comment down below and tell me if you know of this game's existence and if you've ever played it. I would be really curious to know who has and who hasn't. But from the character design to the artwork, it's just such a flair and a vibe going on here that you can't help but be intrigued by what's actually happening. And the character select for a game is relatively solid as well. It's not the biggest roster you've ever seen, but you're definitely going to find somebody here to click with and gel with, learn their moveset, and have an absolute blast. It's just one of those things. Nothing makes sense, and that's why I love it. Anonym here is a nun with a 6-shooter revolver that has ammunition that you need to reload manually. If you run out of bullets, you're not going to have as strong of an attack. From a fighting game perspective, it's a very weird mechanic and can sometimes result in a little bit of cheapness in being able to keep your opponent at a distance. But from a pure what in the hell were they thinking standpoint, I absolutely love it. You have this nun just dual wielding 6-shooters. It works in the context of the game, and that's because the context of the game is absolutely nonsensical. This is set in the future, but it definitely has World War II overtures all over the place in some spots, and in other spots it doesn't have them whatsoever. The tone is definitely uneven, but it works for what the game is doing. If there's only one strike I would give to this game, it would be that the background artwork is 100% stationary. There's really no animation in it whatsoever. It is just still frames with a little bit of parallax scrolling, but you'll see here with those pistols, you were able to 100% keep range between you and your opponent, and that's where this game can start to feel a little bit unbalanced. But it's not the type of game you're going to play for the competitive fighting game spirit of it. You play it because it's a ton of fun, and if you get your friends in the room with you, you're just going to have a good time, and that's all we can really ask. But Marilyn here is way more of a traditional character, and this game is going to allow you to have those different experiences. There's so many different characters to pick from. Some kind of feel like gags, like Blitz Tank there, but Marilyn feels like a straight up mix of SNK versus Street Fighter in the moveset, layout, and otherwise character design. And I will say that the sprites are relatively well animated. Some have more frames of animation than others. It's not the best animation you're ever going to see, but it's definitely mid-tier, and I do appreciate it for that. And the moveset is competent as well. It's got a nice fluidity to it, so when you play this game, you're not just playing it for the charm, humor, and weirdness of it. You are getting a competent fighting game in return, and that's the best of both worlds. Weird as well as fun, as well as competent. That's when I start finding some of my favorite fighting games of all time, but I'm definitely way more prone to enjoying those weird games versus something like Street Fighter 3, which, while a super amazing fighting game, doesn't have that weird charm I'm looking for. And some of the special finishes here just have such nice screen flair as well. The game has always got something unique and fun to show you over the top. It really does remind me of the Matrimelee series, my favorite fighting game franchise of all time. And that's the thing, a game doesn't need to be the best fighting game of all time to be your favorite. It just needs to be good and also a little bit weird at the same time, if you're me. And I will say the game also has a really fun soundtrack, so go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and I'll be right back. Music fix of the game is definitely not anything as good as Power Instinct, but it definitely gets the job done. And this game definitely has a little bit of Guilty Gear vibe in it as well. Perfecta here has a chair that she brings around with her and sits down on, and also has an automatic rifle that's on the end of a spear that has a gigantic blade as a bayonet. A little bit of a Dracula vampire vibe with a little bit of SS mixed in with it, which is totally a vibe that is popular and famous from a lot of different movies from like the 70s and 80s, so it's not at all surprising the developers use that here. But then there's other characters that have a completely different style moveset that still have the same weirdness to them. Maikal here, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, has that same chair but also has this entire animal theme going on where she can summon the spirits of different animals to help her, including creating portals that have arrows shoot through them so you can actually attack from 2 different directions, which really does give me that Guilty Gear vibe going on. But the point is, every single character is different and unique, and you will definitely find somebody who you enjoy playing as. And I will say the heads-up display, something I don't usually ever talk about in a fighting game, I really like it here as well. You get that Nixie tube countdown timer on the top. It just has all of this different charm. Every single inch of the screen is filled with detail outside of the non-animated backgrounds. And honestly, that's not something that I really mind here too much because the character designs are so fun and unique to look at. I don't actually need that much going on in the background. What you'll see here again up against Y, using the bullets can end up in a situation where you can keep your opponent at arm's distance and not have to deal with getting hit whatsoever. But if that doesn't work for you, just grab Blitztank and start grabbing somebody with your skeleton coming out of the end of a tank. I don't understand it, it is so weird, but that's why this game is also fun. It's a competent fighting game that just does whatever the hell it pleases, and that is always fun and refreshing in a video game in and of itself. I love when developers just go balls to the wall weird with the stuff and say, screw it, I'm going to put this in even if it doesn't make any sense. And of course the game does have a little bit of story, but it's going to be in all Japanese, so I don't know what's going on, and it's probably better that I don't. And again, just with the weird character design, still feels like that Matrimelee vibe to me. Something like Kentaro here, this little kid dressed up in what looks like a caveman costume. It just reminds me of a lot of the charm and unique weirdness that this game has as well. And that's my favorite part about this. If you've never heard of it before and you've never played it, I can't ask you enough to check it out. You're going to find a very unique game that feels almost like nothing you've ever seen before. If I had to say this game was closest to one thing, I would probably say Groove on Fight, which is in the Matrimelee and Power Instinct series, but has nothing to do with this title right here outside of the vibes I'm getting from it. But all of the flows to the fights are so good, the character speed is great, and they definitely went to the SNK school of animation when it came to chess physics as well in those 2D frames. But that's the great part about this game. It's just something new and something refreshing, and if you play as many arcade games as I do, you're always looking for an experience like that, something that just makes it feel like it's the first time you've experienced it before, because as you play games in intervening years, that feeling starts to get fleeting. But one more taste of the soundtrack, because this next one is one of my particular favorites, and I'll come back and tell you a little more about the game. I mean, it wouldn't be a 2D fighting game if it didn't have some wailing guitars in there somewhere, and of course they are here for your enjoyment. But again, this is just such a strange game. It's definitely B tier. I'm not trying to say it's some hidden gem that's going to rival the Street Fighter Alphas or the Garou Mark of the Wolves of the world, but it is one of the arcade games that actually gives you difficulty selection within the menu, and that's not something you usually see. Now, it is unfortunate that if you don't speak Japanese, you're not going to have any idea what's going on with the story, but just make it up in your own head. So much of the fun of not understanding a language is whatever you come up with is probably going to be more entertaining than the actual story being told here, but honestly, you could probably just hold your phone over that text and get a real-time Google translation as well. But the one thing that does not need to be translated that is understandable in any language whatsoever is being able to drive around as a gigantic mech with a skull on the top. It doesn't make any sense, but damn it do I love it, and I love this game for its sense of whimsy. It's weird, it's charming, it's competent in the fighting department, and when you're playing it, whatever you're doing, you're definitely going to have a fun time. So next time you have a fighting game night with your friends, load this one up, and I can guarantee you everyone's going to remember it. For that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.